Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive stress test for Bangladesh, the reported surge in violent crime during the first 100 days of Tarique Rahman's government. We are going way past the headlines here. We'll be relying directly on the hard data, the on-the-ground reports, and what the government is actually saying to piece together the real story. So, the big question we really need to tackle today is this. Can a nation just wrest its way out of a crime wave? It's the core of our analysis. Because, as we examine the systemic bottlenecks that analysts say are fueling a culture of impunity, we have to wonder. We're seeing massive police sweeps, but can those actions alone secure the streets if the deeper structural challenges remain? Here's the roadmap for today. First, the 100-day crime surge. Second, targets on the ground. Third, the catch and release cycle. Fourth, a strained justice system. And finally, the government response. Section 1. The 100-day crime surge. Visualizing the problem. Okay, the numbers from police headquarters are, honestly, staggering. They reveal 1,142 murders nationwide, and that's just in the first 4 months of the year alone. Think about that for a second. This isn't just anecdotal chatter. It's the official count, presenting an incredibly severe law and order hurdle right out of the gate for this new administration. But here's the thing you really need to take away. We aren't just dealing with an isolated, sudden spike. It's actually a compounding, multi-year trajectory. We've gone from over 3,000 murders back in 2023, steadily climbing to a projected peak of nearly 3,800 in 2025. So we're talking about an inherited, snowballing crisis that the current government must now manage. And it gets worse when we look at specific vulnerabilities. In April 2026 alone, there were 2,011 filed cases of repression against women and children. That is a massive 35.4% jump from just the month prior, hitting a 9-month high. It really paints a grim picture of how this wave of violence is disproportionately impacting the absolute most vulnerable people in society. Section 2. Targets on the ground. Grounding the impact. So who exactly is getting caught up in this? The reports show the violence literally doesn't discriminate. Down in Savar, journalists investigating drug rings were viciously beaten by a massive syndicate. In Sylhet, an on-duty, plainclothes rapid action battalion member was actually stabbed to death while chasing down a suspect. And in urban centers like Dhaka and Mirpur, everyday civilians and children are just caught in the crosshairs. To truly grasp the human cost here, we have to look at heartbreaking cases like 8-year-old Ramisa in Mirpur, who was tragically assaulted and murdered. Human rights groups point out that over the last 16 months, at least 522 children have been killed nationwide. Cases like Ramisa's aren't just statistics, right? They completely paralyze communities with fear and absolutely shatter the sense of safety families feel in their own neighborhoods. Section 3. The catch and release cycle. Explaining the bottleneck. Now here is where we see a massive disconnect on the ground. Take the Dhaka neighborhoods of Mohammedpur and Adabor. Police and joint forces have arrested over 8,000 people there in just a year and a half for everything from extortion to armed robbery. But crime is still totally unabated. Why? Well, the judicial reality is that these suspects are just easily securing bail and stepping right back onto the streets to pick up exactly where they left off. Police Inspector Rakibuzzaman Talukdar actually hit the nail on the head here. He noted that many individuals are arrested, get bail, and immediately resume the exact same crimes. It's incredibly frustrating for law enforcement, and honestly, it breeds this wild level of brazenness. I mean, look at Jungle Salimpur. Local syndicates actually launched an armed assault on an under-construction rapid action battalion camp. They literally used a bulldozer to destroy walls and dug up roads to block police reinforcements. Just unbelievable. Section 4. A strained justice system. The judicial reality. This brings us to a really heartbreaking statement from Abdul Hanan Molla, the father of 8-year-old Ramisa. He said, "I do not want justice, as I believe you cannot ensure justice." That right there perfectly captures the severe erosion of public trust. When a grieving parent explicitly tells you they have zero faith in the legal system's capacity to deliver, you know you're looking at a deep institutional crisis that goes way, way beyond just policing. And the data totally backs up that lack of faith. A joint study by the Supreme Court and BRAC on abuse tribunals reveals some genuinely jarring stats. We're talking about a mere 3% conviction rate. Nearly 70% of accused individuals escape punishment entirely. And get this, trials that are mandated by law to wrap up in 180 days? They are averaging over 3.5 years. It completely explains that endless catch and release loop we just talked about. Law Minister M. Asadazaman has actually addressed this head-on. He pointed out that while the judiciary is completely independent, which, by the way, he notes is why bail processing can happen so quickly, it is dealing with a severe shortage of manpower. A lack of judges and capable lawyers means the courts literally just cannot keep up with the sheer volume of cases that law enforcement is pushing through the doors. Section 5, the government response. So how is the state responding? Well, authorities are openly acknowledging the crisis and promising a heavy hand. Additional IGP Muslet Odin Ahmed explicitly stated that violent crimes and syndicates will be suppressed with a strict hand. And we're seeing that play out. Law enforcement is launching special block raids after sunset, the new IGP is personally monitoring night ops, and they're even deploying units like the Border Guard Bangladesh to reclaim heavily controlled territories like Jungle Salimpour. We're also seeing intervention right from the top. Prime Minister Tarique Rahman actually visited the Pahlavi home of young Ramisa's family. He offered his condolences and assured them and the wider public that he's instructed the law minister to ensure swift trials and maximum legal punishment. It's a very clear executive push to try and restore public confidence in the state's ability to protect its citizens. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've seen that high-profile arrests and block raids definitely show action, but true, lasting security, that ultimately depends on a justice system that can actually hold offenders accountable. So we have to ask, will these new crackdowns be enough to break the culture of impunity without deep structural reforms in the courts? Can you really arrest your way out of a crime wave if the courts remain a bottleneck? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the data.